Laughing Boy 1. That was the code name of the exercise. It was meticulously planned and beautifully executed. And now it's time for debriefing. In a well-regulated army, every operation is followed by a thorough debriefing, a sort of inquest. If you pardon the grisly joke, so. My my intelligence work. The success of a given operation will always depend on sound intelligence. And mine was a model of soundness. By golly, it was. What I did was, I learned their names. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Elementary. But in fact, it was absolutely crucial. I couldn't possibly have done what I did without it. What do you do? I hear you ask. Well, it was simple. The best tactics are often the simplest. I dogged their footsteps till they separated. You remember, I said a target must be alone? Well, today, one of my laughing boys, Ginger, took the tube from Camden. At first I thought they were both going, but they parted at the station. The other scruff, Link he calls himself, though Stink would be nearer the mark. Ha 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 ha. That was an ad-lib. Started begging along the high street. I went away for a while. The target obviously wouldn't be back for an hour or two at least. And then I came back and hung around, looking in shop windows and buying the occasional cup of char. This Link fellow was still at it up and down the street. I kept well out of his way. I didn't want him noticing me. It turned out to be a long wait, and it could have all been for nothing because Link just wouldn't bugger off. It started to get dark, and I kept expecting him to leave, but he didn't. Eventually, he sat down in a doorway opposite the station, and I thought, terrific. Thanks a lot, you idle, useless brat. It was obvious he was waiting for his mate. I nearly gave up, but it's a good job I didn't, because the pillock fell asleep, and not long after that, I spotted my target coming out of the station. It was time for the master plan. I'm wearing my woolly-headed do-gooder rig. I run across the road and grab him by the arm, looking anxious. Excuse me, I gabble. Are you Ginger by any chance? Who's asking? He says. He can see I'm in a state, but he's cagey just the same. I shake my hand. Never mind, I tell him. You're Link's mate, aren't you? He frowns. What's all this about? Is something wrong? I nod, pulling at his sleeve. It's Link, I gasp. An accident. He ran out right in front of me. I never had the chance. He gulps at me. You mean you knocked him down? Is he dead? It's his turn to grab my sleeve. Have you killed my mate, you bastard? No, I shake my head, pulling at him. Not dead. Not when I left. Badly hurt, though, asking for you. Where? Where is he? Is he in a hospital? What? No, my place. He's at my place. It happened right outside. He's badly hurt and you've got him at your place? He stares at me, wild-eyed. Why didn't you call an ambulance, you stupid git? He could be dying for all you know. You better take me to him. It was magnificent, though I say it myself. Here was a hard, streetwise kid, cagey as they come. He followed me home like a 3-year-old. And of course, everything was set, so when we got there, I rigged up the settee so it looked like somebody was lying under a blanket. I'd even squeezed the blood from half a pound of pig's liver onto the blanket, and he fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. He ran straight to the settee, yelling at me to call an ambulance. And I nailed him when he went to lift the blanket. That was Laughing Boy 1. A brilliant operation, but I didn't hang around about congratulating myself. I tidied up a bit, and then it was time to launch Laughing Boy 2. I planned to use the same trick in reverse, but when I got to the high street, Link the Stink had gone. I mooched about a bit, but there was no sign of him. Still, never mind, eh? There's always tomorrow. Unless you're Ginger, I mean. Next day was a Friday. I spent it looking for Ginger. I tapped a bit as well. Had to, or I'd have starved. All the time I was looking for him and he didn't show. It's happened, I told myself. He's gone back to his real mates, like you always knew he might. I kept hoping, though, deep down. And when you're missing someone, you just keep seeing them. There was this woman, Mrs. Chambers, lived next door when I was a kid. When she was about 50, her husband died, and for ages afterwards she kept seeing him on the street or in the supermarket. She'd jump off the bus or abandon her trolley and go chasing after him, and of course it was always somebody else. And that's what it was like for me that Friday. I'd catch a glimpse of somebody across the road, or through a shop window. somebody just like Ginger, and when I got close, I'd find myself gulping at a stranger. It happened half a dozen times. Around dusk, it started to rain, so I went and sat in a doorway on Pratt Street, watching people go in and out of a posh chippy opposite. Normally, the smell of the food would have driven me out of my tree, but I guess I was half out of it already. A little voice kept going, Ginger, Ginger, like that. It was doing my head in. I thought, what if he's lying in hospital somewhere, unconscious, and nobody knows who he is? He might have walked past the end of the street a minute ago looking for me. Maybe he's lost his memory. In the end, for something to do, I got up and trailed along to the station. There was this guy inside, selling the paper. He was there a lot, and I knew him by sight. I walked past him a couple times, and then went up to him. Were you here last night? I asked. Yeah, he looked at me. Why? I'm looking for someone. My mate. We were supposed to meet here last night. I wondered if you'd seen him. He shrugged. I'd seen a lot of people last night. Hundreds. What's he look like, this mate of yours? Tallish, red hair, bit older than me. Carries a green pack. Ginger, they call him. He nodded. I might have seen him. There was a guy like that last night, I remember, 'cause he was talking to this old fella, shouting something about hospital. They went off together. Which way'd they go? I don't know, do I? Wasn't taking much notice. It might not have been him anyway. No, I hesitated. Look, will you do me a favor? Depends. If you see him again, will you tell him Link's been asking after him? Link? Yeah. He mentioned Link. The old guy. Link's had an accident or something like that. But I'm Link. I haven't had an accident. Are you sure that's what he said? I think so, yeah. The other guy acted sort of frantic, pulling him along, shouting. And you didn't notice which way they went? No, mate, sorry. I hardly slept at all. Thoughts whirled round and round inside my skull, and I was hungry as hell. There were loads of parked cars on Pratt Street, and people kept coming past, chatting and laughing, banging doors and revving up. I was glad when it started to come light. I had a coffee in an all-night joint, and waited till it was time to go along to the market. I kidded myself I was going for a wash and so on, but I was really hoping he was be there. He wasn't, but looking down from the walkway outside the toilets, I spotted the girl Ginger had talked to in the cafe. She seemed to be by herself this time. I pelted along the walkway and down the steps, and I found her looking at hats. I touched her sleeves. Hi. She returned my hi, but I could tell she didn't remember me. Link, I reminded. I was with Ginger. Oh yeah? Where is he? I was hoping you'd tell me. She shook her head. I haven't seen him since Thursday. Me neither. Was it you he was meeting in Holborn? She nodded. Me, Tim, and Ricky, the guys you saw before. We met in the Macklin Center sometime. We meet in the Macklin Center sometimes. Didn't he come back here? I don't know. I told her what the guy in the station had said. She shook her head. Ginger doesn't know anyone here except Captain Hook. She frowned. Accident? Hospital? Are you sure the guy wasn't winding you up? Pretty sure. She pulled a face. Weirdo. I looked at her. I'm worried. I'm sorry. I don't know your name. Toya, she smiled briefly. Well, it's not really, but that's what I like to be called. I'm worried, Toya. I've looked all over. I don't know what to do. She shook her head. There's nothing you can do, Link. Guys like Ginger come and go, you know. Move on. Maybe he found work. I looked down, hacking at a muddy banana skin with the toe of my trainer. If you see him, will you tell me I've been looking for him? She nodded. Sure, if I see him. Only don't hang by your feet, okay? Thanks. I had enough dosh for 2 coffees and meant to offer her one, but she moved off without saying goodbye. And I thought, that's the secret. Don't let anybody close. Don't depend on anyone, because they'll only let you down. I turned away. From now on, I told myself, I worried about me. Just me. It was a resolution I was to keep for about 4 minutes. I went in the cafe, the same one as before. I was trying not to look for Ginger, but looking anyway. There was one empty table. I got a coffee and sat down. The new me. That's what I was thinking. I don't need anyone. Solo and coping, right? Right. I nursed the coffee. It was warm in here and raw outside, so it paid to stay put. I was halfway down the mug when she walked in. She was dossing. I could see that. But she was the best-looking dosser I'd ever seen. I noticed her hair first, chestnut, spilling down from under her green-knitted cap like fire. Her eyes were terrific, too, dark and wide and shining, like she'd just had 12 hours kip. She had on a battered waxed jacket, torn muddy jeans, and broken-down trainers. but she soared above her scruffiness. Her looks and bearing sort of cancelled it out. She didn't look at anybody as she trussed the calf, but everybody looked at her. I couldn't tear my eyes away. She got a Coke and turned, looking for somewhere to sit. Her eyes, those frantic eyes, met mine for a second, and I smiled. No chance, I told myself. Scruffy little git like you. I was wrong. She came over. Every eye in the place followed her. She nodded at one of the 3 empty chairs. Anyone sitting here? She sounded Scottish. I shook my head. Mind if I join you then? I nodded, saying nothing. Being the new me, She unslung her pack, dropped it next to mine, and sat down. I lifted my mug and sipped tepid coffee, gazing out the window. I was acting so cool it was unbelievable. But that's all it was, acting. In the real world, the blood was pounding in my ears, and it was as much as I could do to keep from goggling at that fantastic face. She inserted a straw in her Coke and sucked. When I risked a glance at her, she dropped her eyes. I sipped more coffee, sensing her eyes on my face. I couldn't actually feel them like lasers. I could actually feel them like lasers. After a bit, she said, "Have you been long in London?" Without looking at her, I nodded. "How long?" Year and a half, I lied. Well, in 5 minutes she'd get up and walk away, and we'd never meet again. That right? She sounded suitably impressed. You'll know your way around then. I shrugged. Some. Man, a few words. What'd they call you? Link. Link! She sucked up Coke. What's that short for? It's short for... I have another name, but prefer to be known by this one. Sorry. She looked sorry. I'm Gail. Hi, Gail. Just landed, right? Right. From? Don't tell me if you don't want. Glasgow. Aha. Have you seen? I. Stepfather. Ah. Say no more. She looked at me. You too? Uh-huh. The new me. The guy who doesn't let anybody get close. And here I am spilling my guts to the first stranger I meet because she's got nice hair and laser eyes. I drained my mug and pushed back my chair. I've got to go. Why? She looked crestfallen. I shrugged. Things to do. I stood up. This was costing me, but I wasn't going to wind up watching trains for her to come back. Don't go. So simple, so direct. Something hot and heavy stirred in my chest. I hesitated, dangling my pack, looking down at her. What you want, Gail? Her eyes held mine. I'm scared, Link, she murmured. I don't know what to do, how to live on the street. You'll learn, Gail, that's all. Oh yeah, sneered a voice inside my head. What about your dependence on Ginger? Then, the urge to cling. It came to me that this was the first time I'd thought of Ginger since she walked in, and that was powerful medicine. Maybe we needed each other. I dropped my pack and sat down. Daily routine orders 12. Oh dear. Link the stinks in love and laughing. Boy 2's up shit creek. Yesterday, that's Friday, I made a mistake. A gross error. Like Hitler's invasion of Russia. If I'd concentrated of Link, I might have had him, but I didn't. Instead, I went looking for boots. Reconditioned army boots. Not for me. Oh no. My marching days are over. As you know, these were for my army, the Camden Horizontals, as I've christened them. 4 pairs, all I needed, all different sizes, and I got 'em too. In Bethnal Green, of course. They're not a perfect fit, none of them, but they don't need to be. My lads will not be doing a lot of yomping, so it doesn't matter if the footwear's a bit slack or a bit snug. All it has to do is shine, and it does. Anyway, I lost my chance yesterday, and when I picked up his trail this morning, he bumped into some tart and a calf up the market, and they left together, so it's not going to be easy. I'll have to fall back, regroup, devise fresh tactics, and I'm the fella who can do it. By golly, I am. Is it wrong that I kinda like the serial killer more? We hit it off, Gail and me. From the word go, she got me. From the word go, she got me full stop. She got me another coffee, and we sat there talking, oblivious to everything around us. It was unbelievable. When you're homeless and hungry, you're an outsider. Normal everyday experience doesn't apply to you, you know? Things like having a job to go to, mates to meet, a motorbike to save up for. You don't buy CDs or get your hair cut or have dental checkups or shops for clothes. You can't. Your circumstances put those sorts of things beyond your reach. To all intents and purposes, you belong to a separate species, and one of the hardest bits is how it cuts you off from girls. If you're a guy, I mean. See, normally a young bloke sees a girl passing by, and he'll smile and maybe call out something to her, chat her up a bit. It doesn't mean anything, and it won't usually lead to anything, but it's just part of being young and on the loose, if you know what I mean. And now and then, maybe one time in 100, it does lead to something, and you've got a relationship, which might or might not last. The important thing is that you're part of it, right? One of the guys, or one of the girls, but if you're dossing, you're not. You try chatting up a girl when you're ragged and grimy and pasty-faced, and your teeth are crummy, and she knows you don't even have the price of a coffee. No chance. Not only will you not get off with her, you won't even get the smile. A dirty look and a wide berth's more like it. Berth? B-E-R-T-H? And it's the same thing if you're in reverse, if you're a girl, I guess. After a bit, you start thinking of yourself as a different creature, a creature that lives beside ordinary people but isn't one of them. So finding myself suddenly sitting in this cafe, chatting with a fantastic-looking girl, it felt really strange. For the first time in months, I wasn't some sort of freak. I was a young guy getting to know a girl, like people do. I forgot my tidy clothes and matted hair and the ache in my gut. I forgot about cold, hard doorways and cold, hard eyes and the fact I couldn't even invite her to see a movie. I was a guy, she was a girl, and I might be falling in love. That was all I knew. All I wanted to know. I didn't even notice we'd left the cafe till I found myself sitting on a wall in weak sunshine, holding her hand while some old geezer passing by frowned at us like we were committing a crime or something. It was the start of a brilliant time for me, and all I can say is it's a good job we can't see into the future. So we're sitting on this wall, and she says, "Let's get chips and eat them by the water. It's a warm day for February at that. But there's one snag. I got no dosh," I tell her. "I have." "Yeah, but it's gotta last. It's slim pickings tapping." I got plenty," she says. "You won't have for long if you broadcast it like that," I grin. "How'd you know I won't mug you for it?" "Try it," she says. "You'll get us something you didn't bargain for." Or, get something you didn't bargain. She bought chips and we sat by the water. I said, "What you dossing for if you got dosh? You could get a place." She shrugged. "Like you said, it's gotta last. And anyway, I'm with you now. I don't need a place." That sounded reasonable, as well as flattering, and I accepted it. I should have pushed a bit harder, but I was well in love by this time, and so you don't, do you? This guy falls in love so fast, jeez. We ate and talked. She was terminally curious about what she called the scene. She meant life on the street. She asked about 1,000,000 questions, and I did my best to answer them. I had no choice since I'd passed myself off to her as an old hand. To be perfectly honest, I was beginning to regret having lied. Not because of the questions, but because of love, I suppose, which is ironic considering what happened later. But this was not what happened later! I didn't tap at all that day. Neither of us did. We strolled through the market looking at the costly junk and the punters who were buying it. We got cokes and even ate again, though my wizened gut wasn't hungry. I don't believe I thought of Ginger once, except when I was telling her about him, which is rotten, but shows what love will do. And so the day slipped by. I told her about Captain Hook, and when it got dark, I thought of suggesting a night on board. But I didn't. For one thing, it'd have seemed it'd have seemed cheeky when it was her dosh. And for another thing, I didn't want to spend our first night in a reeking crowd. I wanted Gale to myself. So I took her to a favorite doorway of mine, where we bedded down for the night. Nothing happened. Sorry to disappoint, but it's true. I don't know why. Malnutrition, perhaps. Or stepfathers. All we seemed to want to do was sleep with our arms around each other, and that's what we did. but if you think that must have been dead boring, you're wrong. Someday she wanted to try her hand at tapping, so we rode down to Charing Cross. I remembered how Ginger had started me off, leaving me by the National Gallery while he did Trafalgar Square, and we did the same. I didn't want to leave her, even though we'd be practically in sight of each other. It was a cold morning, but dry, and there were quite a lot of people about. As I made the round of benches, a little video kept playing itself inside my head. I was the star. The opening scene showed me how we got across to collect. The opening scene showed me going across to collect Gail in a couple of hours' time, and finding she's vanished. And after that came a succession of shots of me in various stressful situations, running through unfamiliar streets, calling her name, trying to interest the police who don't want to know, waiting on Camden Station forever. I tried to suppress this video, reminding myself that it was Gail who'd wanted us to stick together, so she was hardly likely to do a runner the minute my back was turned. But it was no use. I guess I was still haunted by the way Ginger had dropped out my life. Anyway, I didn't stick it long. The pigeons were doing better than I was in any case, scoring chunks of bread and handfuls of corn while I got sweet F.A.? I swear, if I ever come to London again, I'll come as a pigeon. I did about half an hour, then started making my way back, tapping all the way. She wasn't there, not on the steps, not on the pavement. Panic squeezed my heart. I ran up the steps, looked all round, then set off along the front of the gallery. I just turned into St. Martin's Place when I saw her coming out of a phone box. My relief was so overwhelming that it was some time before it occurred to me to wonder whom she'd been calling. When I asked, she said, "My sister's in Glasgow. She made me promise to keep in touch." It sounded totally feasible. I nodded. "I've got a sister, Carol. I don't phone, though. Clean break, you know?" She nodded. "I promised." "Oh, I'm not getting at you. I know." She squeezed my hand. I grinned, squeezing hers. "How much did you make?" She shrugged. "Dunno, never counted." "Hang on." She dug in her pocket and produced a double handful of change and counted it. £2.30. She pocketed the coins. "How about you?" I shook my head. 12 pence, and I'm supposed to be the expert. "Beginner's luck," she smiled. "Or maybe it's because I'm a woman." She gazed at me. "Anyway, we share, don't we? Everything?" And from then on we did. It was all so fantastic that time just flew. I practically stopped noticing the cold. When something happened to jerk me back to the real world, it was spring. And I'll leave it there for now. Come back hopefully tomorrow, if I remember, for Daily Routine Orders 13. And that rhymed. Daily Routine Orders 13.